Hi everyone, it's Liz from Crafty Woman Shop, and I want to welcome you to this video tutorial. In this video tutorial, I will show you how to create the Celtic Weave Beanie. The Celtic Weave Hat pattern is worked from the top down, so first we're going to start with creating the crown. Make a magic circle. Chain 2, now this chain 2 will actually count as the first half double crochet of this round, and this is the only instance where this is true for the pattern. So we're going to make 8 total half double crochet, with the first being this chain 2. So now we're going to make the second stitch. So far we have 4. And 8 half double crochet, including that chain 2. So I'm going to cinch it up. Nice and tight. Now I like to work this end in as I make the next few rounds, but first we're actually going to join the round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's the chain 2 there. So I'm just going to slip stitch to join the round. I'm going to keep the end there so I can weave it in as I go. And now I'm going to chain 2. This is a build-up chain and it is not going to count as a stitch. The method I reference in the pattern helps hide the seam that appears when you work stitches in the round. So if you're watching this video to see how exactly I do that, and this is definitely the part where you want to pay attention. So I made my build-up chain 2. I'm going to half double crochet in the next stitch. And I'm going to place a stitch marker just to keep track of it. Now technically what you would traditionally do is make 2 stitches in the first stitch and in each stitch around, but in this first stitch I'm just going to put 1, and we'll actually make the second stitch last, or what should be the first stitch of the round, we're going to make that last, but I'll show you how to do that. That'll make a little more sense once we get to the end of the round. So in this first stitch you're just putting 1 half double crochet, but in all the rest you're going to put 2 half double crochets in each stitch around. So far we have 1 stitch, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and you'll notice I am working right over that end here as I go, so you don't have to weave it in later. 13, 14, 15. Now the first round had 8 stitches, and in the second round you should be doubling that amount of stitches. So far we have 15, so we still have 1 stitch to go, and that's that first stitch that we skipped making in the beginning of the round. So you'll notice right here we have the chain 2, the build-up chain, and then we have our first stitch here, which is worked right into there. So we still need to put a second stitch there. This is actually making the first stitch of the round last. And that just kind of neatly covers up the point where you join and build up the round. So you get what basically looks like, it looks like it's almost seamless. I mean, when you look at this finished hat, technically where that is taking place is right here. If you do more of a traditional joining method in the round, it'll be a much bigger gap. Okay, so I took out the stitch marker. I'm going to keep weaving in this end as I go. I'm going to join the round in that first stitch, build up chain. Now I'm going to half double crochet one in the first stitch here. Technically the repeat for this round for the increase is 2 half double crochet and then 1 half double crochet in the next stitch, and then repeat that around. But for the very first stitch, we're just going to put in 1 half double crochet and add in the second one at the end of the round like we just did in the previous round. So we're going to put 1 more half double crochet in the next stitch. So far you have 2 half double crochets. I'm going to place my marker just so I don't lose track. Now I'm going to make 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. This is the third stitch of the previous round. Half double crochet 1, half double crochet 2 in the next stitch, half double crochet 1 in the next. Now we're on the last 2 stitches of the round. Half double crochet 2, half double crochet 1 is what you should be ending on. And now we're back to the beginning here. So recall we only put 1 half double crochet in the first stitch here. We need to add in a second one. So we're just going to skip over the build up chain and give this little guy a half double crochet buddy. Now we have 2. And this round should have increased by another 8 stitches. I'm going to join the round. So round 1, 8 stitches, 16, 24. You're going to continue increasing in this way. Now to show you round 4, we've got our build up chain, half double crochet in that first stitch. Don't add the second one yet for this first stitch. The pattern here now, I'm going to put a half double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. In the next stitch I'll make 2 half double crochet, then 1 half double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Now we're on the last 3 stitches here. So you should be ending on a 2 half double crochet in the next stitch, and then a half double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Here's our build up chain 2. Here's our first half double crochet that we made, placed right there. So we're going to go give the stitch its buddy. And now we've increased by 8 stitches again. This is round 4. Join. Chain 2. Now I'm just going to demo the newborn size for this hat. I'm not going to make all of the sizes in this video, but when you read the pattern on the blog, which by the way is free, all the instructions are there. You're going to start the same way. You're just going to add more rounds for each size to get the bigger sizes. So I'll do one more round here. This will be round 5. So I already made the first half double crochet here. We'll add the second one at the end of the round. 1 half double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Two half double crochet in the next. Half double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Now we've got the last 4 stitches here. So you should be ending with a 2 half double crochet in the next stitch, half double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Now we're going to add in that first stitch for the round, which is now the last stitch of the round with this method. So there is the first half double crochet. We're going to work right over the chain 2. And there we go. Okay, so that was the end of round 5. We're done increasing, at least for the newborn hat, but the process is the same for all the other sizes. I'm going to chain 2. This will not count as a half double crochet. Now in the increase rounds, we would put 1 half double crochet in the first stitch and add a second one later. That's because we were increasing. Now we're not. So we're actually going to skip over this first stitch for now if you want to hide the seaming. And we'll add that stitch in at the end of the round. So you're actually going to skip this first stitch and then half double crochet in the next. So I'll place a marker. By the way, you should have 40 stitches at the end of round 5 for the newborn size. And then for every round you increase, it should just be larger by another 8 stitches. So this is the build-up chain. Here's the first stitch we're making. We're gonna work this first stitch last to use the same invisible seaming method that I like to use for hats. So we're gonna put 1 half double crochet in each stitch around. So I have the last couple of stitches here, half double crochet in each of those. Working over the build-up chain 2 here, we're now going to place a half double crochet in that skipped stitch. So do not join this round. We're just going to continue, but we're going to work half double crochet in a special way. It's also known as camel stitch or working half double crochet in the 3rd loop. Now normally with stitches you see this V on the top, those 2 loops that form a V, that is your stitch. If you tilt a half double crochet stitch forward a little bit, there's another loop right here. So this little guy right there is what we're going to be working into. So to make the first, and remember you're not joining and we're not going to chain, make your first half double crochet in this 3rd loop back here. So I am going to try and show you here best I can. And you're just making a half double crochet in that loop. Just going to take out my stitch marker, add it to this first stitch, especially important when you're working continuously. It's very easy to lose track of the stitches or the first stitch. So I'm going to make this camel stitch, which is a half double crochet in the 3rd loop all the way around. Now we are going to join, but we're actually going to join in the 3rd loop of that first stitch. So you're not going to join in the traditional stitch here. you're just going to join in the third loop. The next 3 rounds of the Celtic Weave baby beanie are going to be the Celtic Weave pattern. So this is round 8 if you're making the newborn size, but it's the same process for all the other sizes too. So the first step is to chain 4. We're actually going to make treble crochets, so we need the chain 4 to count as a treble crochet stitch. Now there are other patterns that tell you to chain 4 and then make a treble crochet. If you do that, I'll just show you real quick. I don't really like that because you're supposed to have just the 1 stitch, and the chain 4 is gonna show in some way or another. So I am showing you a method where the chain 4 counts as a stitch every single time. So for this first round of Celtic Weave stitch, this chain 4 will count as the first treble crochet of the round. So I am going to place a marker in the top chain, the 4th chain, to keep track. Now in this round, we want to keep the previous round of camel stitches pushed forward, these half double crochet stitches. So we are going to continue working in the third loop for this first round of Celtic Weave. So we've made the first treble crochet. Now I'm going to make the second treble crochet in the next stitch, working in that third loop. Now Celtic Weave involves cabling, some basic cabling. So we are going to go back 2 stitches. So 1, 2. And we are going to work in front of these 2 stitches just made. So make sure you're inserting your hook with these stitches pulled to the back and not to the front. So you're just going to keep those 2 back there. We got to make our first cross of the weave pattern. So again, we're working in those third loops, so it's a little tricky getting this started at first, but once you get the hang of it, it gets a lot easier. So we're going to go back those 2 stitches. I'm trying to balance doing this while keeping my hands in the frame. So I'm going into that third loop. I'll flip it around. So I'm making a treble 2 stitches back into the third loop of that stitch, pulling through. So I pulled it through to the other side. Pull through 2 loops and 2 loops and 2 loops. You do need to know how to treble crochet for this pattern. Now I need to go into, so that was the first stitch. Now I need to go into the second stitch. So I am going to find that loop. Getting a little close there. Okay. So that third loop is back there. Pull through. And so the first cross has been made. It doesn't look like much yet, but as you start working the next 2 rows, you do start to get that woven look. So it doesn't look like much yet, but it will get there. So that's the first 4 treble crochet. and you're going to continue working into third loops. So now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and we're going to work in the next 2 after that. So treble crochet into the 3rd stitch and the 4th stitch over. Go back to those 2 skipped stitches, and when you're working these cables you're always going to start with the rightmost stitch and then work from right to left, just like you crochet, or if you're a lefty you'll be doing the opposite direction, but you can get the idea. So the first skipped stitch here, we're going to treble crochet, work in front of the 2 stitches just made. So I'm going to try and pull these up. Here's the first skipped stitch, work into that 3rd loop. The second skipped stitch, work into that 3rd loop. Second cross made. We're going to continue working this pattern of skipping the next 2 stitches, treble crochet in the next 2 stitches in the 3rd loop, go back to those 2 skipped stitches, working in front of the 2 stitches you just made, treble crochet in the first skipped stitch, which is the rightmost, and then the second skipped stitch, moving right to left. Now we're at the end of the round, so I'm working treble crochet in each of those final 2 stitches, going back, working the 2 skipped stitches just as we've been doing. And now I'm going to join to the top of the chain 4 that was first made. This counts as the first treble crochet of the round. Now it's behind stitches there, but if you put a stitch marker it should be easy to find. I'll get this out of the way. And now you'll see this first cross looks a little bit better now that it's now joined with the last cross made. Now when you count around for the newborn pattern, there should be 10 crosses around. Now for the second round, we're going to chain 4. But this chain 4 is actually going to count as the last treble crochet of the round instead of the first. So we made the last treble and we're just going to leave it for now. You'll see how we work with that when we get to the end. Now for the next round and the round after that, it's easier to count stitches by counting the posts. So each cross contains 4 posts with 2 hiding behind and 2 up front here. So this first cross, that's 4 treble crochet stitches, and in the pattern it's written as skip the next 4 stitches, so essentially you're skipping this first cross all together. And we are going to treble crochet, front post treble crochet in the next 2 stitches. So we're skipping over this cross and going to these 2 stitches, the first 2 stitches of the next cross. Now this is where the weaving starts to happen. So we're going to front post treble crochet in each of these next 2 treble crochet. So we're going to make these 2 front post stitches. Now in this round, the stitches are behind in the cross, so they're to the back. Now we want them to be coming to the front. We want them laying over the front of the next 2 of the cross. So we skipped 4 stitches. We're going to keep those first 2 stitches unworked. So these 2 posts hiding back here, we're not going to work into them. We're going to work into these second 2 posts of the cross. So don't worry about those first 2 yet. We'll take care of that at the end of the round. So since we want these 2 posts laying in front of the cross we're about to make, we're going to work behind these 2 stitches instead of working in front of the 2 stitches just made like we did in the previous round. So we are going to just move those forward. I'm going to grab the 2 post stitches here, the 2 posts, and I'm going to treble crochet in each of those posts. Try to get this to come out on camera. So here's the first one. Remember, it's front post treble crochet, so you're not working into the stitches, you're working around the post. So you do need to know how to do this for the pattern. And now you'll notice we made a cross. So now these 2 stitches, which are hiding in the previous round, they're behind in the cross, they continue, and now they're laying over the front of the cross. So looking at the next 2 stitches here, or the 2 posts, we're going to skip over those. And again, we're going to work into the next 2. So we're bringing these out to be worked, or to be the front part of the cross over the top, not the back. So again, we're going to work behind these 2 front post treble crochet we just made. I'm going to go back to the 2 that we skipped over. And now we've made the second cross. So now you're really starting to see the woven nature of this stitch pattern. So again, skip the next 2 stitches here, these 2 posts. We're going to work the next 2. Do front post treble crochet. Working behind the 2 stitches just made. Front post treble in those 2 skipped stitches. Third cross made. And just continue working the same exact pattern all the way around until we get to the end of the round. Okay, so we've reached the end of the round, which for the newborn hat size, this would be round 9. It is also the second round in the Celtic Weave stitch pattern. Now remember that I said the chain 4 that you made at the beginning of the round will actually count as the last treble crochet we're making, so I'm about to show you how that works. Now if you also recall, we left these 2 stitches, these 2 posts unworked in this first cross of the previous round. So we have these 2 worked, but not the first 2. So we're actually going to go ahead and work those now. So at the end of the round here, you should have 2 posts left until the chain 4 here, and then the 2 posts which are hiding back here from the beginning of the round. So we're going to work these posts here first. So you're skipping these last 2 stitches, and we are going to work, and we're going to work over to the front of this chain 4. Going to work treble crochet in those unworked treble crochet posts from the beginning of the round. And we're going to continue the stitch pattern here, where we're going to work behind these 2 stitches we just made and work into the 2 skipped stitches. But in this case, we only need to work 1 into the first skipped stitch, so the rightmost skipped stitch, since we're going to count this chain 4 as the treble crochet for the second skipped stitch. So we're just making 1 more treble crochet. Remember to work behind these stitches just made. So we're going to work around this guy, front post treble crochet. And we're not going to put a front post treble crochet here because this is counting as that treble crochet. So that is how this chain 4 ends up being the last stitch of the round. So we're going to join, and that completes round 9 if you're making the newborn hat. I'm going to take out my stitch marker. Now we have 1 more round of Celtic weave stitch to make. So again, I'm going to chain 4. This again counts as the last treble crochet of the round. Now you might be thinking this next round is just another repeat of the previous round now, but it's not. We are going to skip this first cross completely, so these first 4 stitches we're going to work into the next 2 stitches, front post treble crochet, but this is where this round is different. In the last round we worked behind these 2 stitches just made. In this round we are now going to work in front of the 2 stitches just made, because remember, we're weaving as we go, or at least that's how I think of it. So now we're going to go back. We have 4 skipped stitches, but we're just going to go back to the last 2 of those 4. We're going to keep those first 2 skipped stitches unworked until the end of the round, just like in the previous round. So don't work into these first 2, work into the second 2 stitches of this cross. Now instead of working behind, remember we're going to work in front, because we want to bring these guys up and have them weave over the stitches we just made to get that nice woven look. So front post treble crochet in the first and then the second of those previous 2 skipped stitches, and we've made our first cross. Again, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, work into the next 2 stitches, front post treble crochet in the first and the second, then working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to go back to these 2 skipped stitches, work a front post treble crochet in each. And continue that pattern. I'm going to skip those 2, work into these 2, the next 2. Work in front of the 2 just made, Go back to those 2 skipped stitches. And you're just going to keep doing that around. And then I'll show you at the end of the round how we're going to deal with the chain 4. Okay, so now we've reached the end of the round. This is the 3rd round of Celtic weave stitch in the beanie pattern. If you're making the newborn sized hat, this is round 10 that we're ending here. And so now I'm going to show you how to deal with the chain 4 you made, which, if you recall, this counts as the last treble crochet of the round, even though we've already made it. So we made across here. There's 2 stitches left in the round. We're going to skip over those for now, and we are going to work these 2 stitches. So we are going to work behind the chain 4. So you don't want to be working in front of it. You want to work behind, because you want it to be resting over the 2 stitches we're about to make. So we are going to work the 2 skipped stitches, the 2 unworked stitches from the beginning of the round, front post treble crochet in each. Keep that chain 4 pushed forward there. Okay, so we worked those 2 stitches and now they're behind this chain 4. Now we need to go back and we still need to work this stitch. We need to work around this post right here. We're not going to work around this one because this chain 4 will count as that treble crochet. So we're going to go to this one, the second to last stitch of the round. We're going to treble in front of the 2 stitches just made, working in front of those. Front post treble crochet. And now we're going to join to the top of the chain 4, which is the second skipped stitch there, but it's already been made in the beginning of the round. So we are going to join, and you'll notice it looks just like 2 front post treble crochet. So that completes the Celtic weave pattern for this baby beanie. Now what we need to do is do another few rounds of half double crochet, including some camel stitching, and then we'll finish up with single crochet around the brim. So for round 11 now, if you're making the newborn size, we're going to chain 2. This does not count as a stitch. We're going to skip the first stitch here. We're going to continue that method for making the joins as invisible as possible in the round. So we're going to skip that one, and now we're going to half double crochet in each stitch around. I'll put the stitch marker in so we don't lose track. So we're just leaving that first stitch unworked until the end, like we've been doing previously in this pattern. So half double crochet in each treble crochet stitch around. All right, so we've reached the end of the round. Now we want to work that first stitch, so we're going to work over or in front of this build-up chain 2, does not count as a stitch, and we're going to half double crochet into that first stitch. We do not want to join the round, since now we're going to work camel stitch, and the camel stitch looks best in a continuous round. So remember, camel stitch is half double crocheting in the 3rd loop, or that back hump of the stitch. So just tilt the stitch forward, stitch marker is getting in the way, We're going to go into that third loop back there. And we're going to camel stitch around. So we're going to half double crochet in the third loop all the way around. I have the last 2 stitches here. This is the end of round 12. We're going to continue on into round 13. There's no joining or chaining, and this will be the final round of camel stitch in this pattern. There's the first stitch. Move that stitch marker to keep track. And you're going to continue with camel stitch all the way around until the end of the round. Okay, so this is the end of round 13. I just have one more stitch to work in camel stitch. Now we have one more round to go. I'm not going to join the round because it looks a little strange to do so coming out of camel stitch. So we're not going to chain either. We're just going to jump straight into single crocheting in each stitch around and no longer in the third loop. So we're just going to single crochet in the traditional stitch of each half double crochet around. So we're not worrying about that third loop. If you find you want your hat to be a little taller, you can do an additional round of single crochet if you wish. Now we're at the end of the final round here, which is round 14 for the newborn size. And I like to finish any work in the round with an invisible join. I won't go into detail here. I have another video for that. So I'll put a little link on the screen that you can just click on, and also in the description. Here is the Celtic Weave Beanie. Thank you for watching this free pattern tutorial. Be sure to visit the blog craftywomanshop.com. You can also find me on social media and stay updated with free patterns, tips, tricks, and more tutorials. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more, and go ahead and hit that like button.